Welcome to the Infinite Human Talk Show with Elizabeth Monroy. Over the next hour, you'll learn how you can become part of the new consciousness renaissance by evolving yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, and socially to embrace your true divine infinite nature and become an infinite human and co-creator of the new infinite earth. Now, here is your host, Elizabeth Monroy.
Hello, my divine infinite human beings. You're all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be. And today we have a very special guest. I am so excited. The great David Icke, and we'll be discussing his brilliant book, The Dream. And it's wonderful. I think everyone needs to get a copy and get it out of the net, so you actually have a physical copy of it. But he also did a movie of it, and it's on Iconics, and it's brilliant. I just watched it last night. So, and he's here with us. I just want to say, I know everyone's always saying, wonderful things now, 30 years later, but but I just want you to know what an influence you were in my life. And I know if you're like me, you don't want followers, you want leaders. You want to create people that go out and do other things. And you've been an inspiration for me. And I think everyone goes through a time in their life when, they begin to awaken, a never ending process, because you're always awakening into the infinite. But there's a time when you are really confused, when up is down and down is up, and you feel like Alice who just fell down into the rabbit hole, and it can be mind boggling and even fearful. And I reached that point back in 2015. I'd always followed spiritual teachers, but I realized that the world was much darker than I had been taught. And so I was reading your books, and at that time you were all over YouTube, for free. It was wonderful. And I also was following, the good old days. And I was following Ashiana Dean and Voyager 2 and just finding out how deep the rabbit hole went. But literally, I would go to sleep at night listening to your marathons in Wimbledon, those 4 and 5 hour ones, because I really believe that you have an encryption of truth. And I believe truth is a frequency. And, you just, it just comforts people. And it was something I could just latch on to because I felt, yes, there's truth. And obviously it's true because, I'm in Sicily now, and I was in Italy during the scandemic. And, everyone was looking at me because I used to do esoteric Renaissance tours, and I met people from all over the world. And when the whole thing, came down, people were looking at me saying, "What's going on, Elizabeth? What's going on?" I'm so glad, to bring you on Voice America, to give you a voice, even though since I publicized you all over Facebook, two of my accounts have been restricted. So they don't want the frequency of truth to come through. But welcome. And we're going to be talking about the dream. So David, say hi.
Thanks. It's kind of funny, isn't it? That you have an alternative media which focuses on the politics and the financial manipulation, and so do I. I have done that for 34 years and stuff. But not only on that, and it's funny when I'm talking about the nature of reality and the nature of what we call human, and how this world that we experience in a certain way, a way of physicality, is not like that at all. If only we would realize it. Suddenly, you're banned from everywhere, and they give the different excuses and reasons, all of which are bogus, because they can't really ban you for the reason they're really wanting to shut you up,
Mm-hmm.
which is to go beyond just the symptom level of politics and finance and what have you, to actually the core. It's a strange thing for me to observe sometimes when, and I do understand it, and I do this level of it myself, but you are looking at censorship, this terrible censorship. Okay, yes, it is. And there's this political manipulation, and it's terrible. Yes, it is. And we're being manipulated. Yes, we are. But when you get back from that, you see the big picture of it. That kind of pales into a little bit of insignificance when you realize that our very reality is not what we think we're experiencing, and our perceptual control, which is what it's all about. You control perception, you control people, you control behavior, you control everything. The perceptual manipulation, which is what censorship is all about, because we get our perceptions from information received in whatever form that is. So manipulating what we see in terms of information is manipulating perception. So all that is going on, and yeah, it's terrible and it needs exposing. But when you go to the big picture, the very perception that we have of the world we're actually living, quote, in, is being manipulated on a scale that beggars belief. We're not living in a physical world. It seems we are, we experience it as such, but we're not. And so a lot of the stuff is, even in the alternative media, if you can get people to focus only on the political manipulation, the financial manipulation, the information manipulation, then that's not too bad for you, because when everybody's focus is on that, it's not on the fact that our very reality is where the real manipulation is coming from, in terms of the way we perceive our existence when it's nothing like we appear to be experiencing it.
Well, I love the dream, and I think you explain it so well in a very grounded way. And I, I I went into great detail because I really believe that, I mean, it's starting to get very thin, the veil, every day. And I think that's really what ascension is, that it's coming down. And what's happening then is underneath there is this true reality. You call it the prime earth. And what's happening is, we're seeing certain areas, especially in the ley lines and the grids that are, really dissolving that frequency band. And we're starting to, those with eyes that can see, to see reality from a whole different perspective.
Mhm.
And, in my book, The Infinite Human, I'm always pointing everyone to stop looking externally for their truth, for their answers, for everything. And it's inside. So I think that connection that has been severed with the true, and you talk about the Fibonacci spiral. We had a session a few weeks ago, back in November, about the timeline splitting and the Fibonacci, which is really part of this fallen sacred geometry, which has been the geometric patterns that are made up of flash sequences that are created by mathematical equations that have created geometry that have caused this frequency band that has absolutely encapsulated our morphogenic field of the planet. And, thus we who are one with our Mother Earth, and it's also been overlaid inside of our divine blueprint, our Crystalla blueprint. And we talked a lot about the Crystalla spiral, which is that leads us back in alignment with that which is organic, because it's all a hologram. But there's an organic, true divine blueprint hologram. But we've had this Fibonacci, this fallen architecture that's changed our physical reality, even to the fact that the shells are, moving in with that direction, and it's fallen architecture that's pulling us down into fallen phantom realities to continue to be fed upon. And the simulation that we're in right now, a lot of people say, well, it's a simulation. And I've had people say, what's the difference? It's all a hologram. Well, one is a holographic AI, artificial, not divinely created, that is created to harvest loosh and for us to be fed upon, and and to create pain and suffering. And then the other one is follows the law of one, where everyone plays fair, where free will is respected, where everyone plays fair with each other. So do you want to, I thought you explained that very well in your book. Do you want to expand on that?
Well, the thing is that I've always worked on the premise of Socrates in ancient Greece, who is quoted as saying, words to the effect of, wisdom is knowing how little we know. To know,
that's my motto. The more I learn, the more I realize I know nothing.
Yeah, to know is to know nothing. To know you know nothing, and that's very important, because if you look at religions, they are coming from a premise that they know everything. In effect, you can get what you need to know within the covers of between the covers of a single book or whatever. And you've got science, which is another religion, which has a story, which it's constantly trying to protect from all borders. And the fact is that when you see the staggeringly narrow band of frequency that we're actually living, quote, in, and the extraordinary narrow band of frequency that we can actually see, you take the projected size of the universe as mainstream science projects it, for what that's worth, then the electromagnetic spectrum, which is basically our reality, is 0.005% of what exists in energy in all its forms in the universe. And visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can see, is a smear. It is a smear of the 0.005%. So from that perspective alone, and that actual fact should be taught to children at the earliest age that they can grasp. So they don't go around thinking, which is one of the great ways that we are deluded, to believing that when you look through your eyes, you're seeing everything in the space you're looking at. You're not. You're seeing a narrow band of frequency, and infinity exists within the space that you're in, but you can only see a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of it. So from that perspective alone, it is rather sensible to realize that whatever we think we know, there's always more to know, like massively to know. And so that is the driving force that has been driving me since 1990, when I had this massive awakening. And that means that you're constantly seeking out the cutting edge, just constantly seeking out the next stage, because you know that whatever stage you're at and whatever you think you know, there's always more to know. And that's what's been pushing me this last 34 years now. So I started off looking at in the early 90s how a few people were controlling the reality that we see through a network of secret societies, what I call the global cult. Then from about 96, a heck of a lot of information and more after that came into my life to say that there is a non-human force manipulating human society via this secret society cult. That's why it's one reason why they're secret societies. And they're very compartmentalized, so only the inner core really knows the full story. But the big next stage for me was just after the turn of the millennium, when I had this overwhelming feeling that this is a simulation, the equivalent of a very vastly advanced equivalent of a virtual reality computer game. And what came to me in that moment was, it's a simulation, and the limit of the simulation, at this level anyway, is the speed of light. And the speed of light appears to be the fastest speed only because it's the limit of the simulation at the level we're operating at. And I looked around and to see if anyone else was talking about this. The only guy I found in the public eye anyway was Nick Bostrom, a professor at Oxford University, who was postulating that this could be a simulation. And the way he saw it was not how I saw it, but at least he was, we were had the theme in sync. And then as the years have gone on, like particularly from about maybe 2017 onwards, more and more, I say mainstream scientists, but open-minded mainstream scientists have started to realize that if you look at the evidence, if you look at the fabric of our reality, that it is highly, highly likely, they say, that we are in a form of simulation. And as one of them said, a guy called Rich Terrell at NASA, if we're in a simulation, and he said he felt that it was a holographic simulation, exactly what I said at the turn of millennium or just after, then obviously it's not a natural phenomenon, and it's been created by some form of intelligence, which locks into this non-human force I've been talking about since 1996. And so you keep moving along, and you're adding more and more information, and you're searching for the next stage all the time. And when I wrote the previous book, To the Dream, The Trap, I'm writing a trilogy. I'm just writing the third one now, the reality trilogy, you might call it. It was a journey I'd been on for quite a long time, but I really focused myself on in The Trap and The Dream, and now this new one, on this whole area of the simulation and the reincarnation cycle that is designed to keep us in the simulation. And so the evidence starts to fall into place, like the kaleidoscope keeps moving. And it's obvious that this is not a natural reality, in the sense that, and one of the great things is that, as I say, it's the great thing, it's not in the way it plays out, but from someone who's trying to explain it, what they're saying. The great thing is that modern technology, AI, computerization, etc., the cloud, the electromagnetic cloud that they're adding to all the time, they are mimicking the very reality that we are experiencing. And so it makes it easier to kind of explain what you're trying to say, because you've suddenly got the tools now to do that, which, in much earlier times, you had the shamans and what have you, and the people in the tribes and the native cultures who were kind of getting this whole the way that reality is. But of course, they could only explain it, what they were seeing, what they were feeling, in ways that were symbolic of that time. And so what happens is your anthropologists and your historians go along, and they look at these ancient cultures, And they think these shamans were primitive because they believe this and they believe that. And you go, no, they're talking symbolically, using symbols of that time and that era and that culture. What they're describing is actually the simulation. So, for instance, in 1945, in a place called Nagamadi, about 75, 80 miles north of Luxor in Egypt, an amazing find was discovered in an earthen jar in 1945. And it was writings, extensive writings, of a belief system known as Gnostic. And it's estimated that those texts were put in that jar maybe around 400 AD. And it describes what the Gnostics of that period and Egypt believed, and a lot of their knowledge went back to ancient Greece. And they described that this reality was what they called a bad copy in effect of prime reality. So if you think of a reality that's kind of, we'll call it natural, and it's evolved as something that has been created in a natural way, and then you have a force that wishes to capture consciousness and enslave consciousness in a fake reality. And to do that, they create, this is what the Gnostics were talking about when they talk about the bad copy, they create a frequency digital copy of that prime reality. And it's exactly the same principle as laying a Wi-Fi field. We've got a field of consciousness, shall we say, around us. But there's also a Wi-Fi field. And the Wi-Fi field contains a completely different reality we call the internet. So if there was Wi-Fi in this room, the entire internet worldwide exists in this room in the form of radiation, in the form of a frequency field, a wave field. And
well, I always would say, don't surf the net. Like we're in a net, like little fishes, surf with your organic chip, the infinite. We're multidimensional beings, we can surf the infinite. I think you called it cosmic Wi-Fi in your book, right?
Yeah, cosmic Wi-Fi. So
I like that.
So the way we are interacting with this simulation is precisely the way that computers interact with Wi-Fi. And this simulation is not a construct in terms of a physical construct. It is a field of information, exactly like Wi-Fi. And so what happens with a computer is you have a Wi-Fi field, which you can't see. It's outside of the frequency band of human sight. And you've got the internet in it. And what you do is you connect your computer with, the keyboard or whatever, to that field. And you take part of that field, whichever part you choose, we call them websites. And you have the computer literally decode the internet from the Wi-Fi field of radiation into what we see on the screen. And, people say, if you said to people, what's the internet? They would say it's graphics and pictures and videos on the screen. Well, yes, it is, but only on the screen. The internet does not exist in that form anywhere else. It is Wi-Fi and its electrical circuits. So if you then take it to the way that we decode reality, what I'm saying in the dream is that our reality is a field of information, and it's a manufactured, created field of information to bamboozle our perception of who we are and where we are. a prison cell reality. And the human body is actually a decoding device. It's decoding the field of information. So what I've been doing since the 1990s is referring to the human body as a biological computer. And it does exactly the job that the computer does with Wi-Fi. So if you take, again, mainstream science, we are our five senses, which are what connect us to this this simulation. They are picking up frequency information, wave field information. They're all doing it in that way, the five senses. But I mean, the ears are a classic example because we talk about sound waves. That's frequency. And so the ears, for instance, pick up sound waves. And what they do, like all the senses, including the eyes, they turn that frequency information into electrical information, which is communicated to the brain. And the brain then decodes that into digital holographic information, which we perceive as the external world when it's actually in here. And when you think about the computer analogy, and it's not really an analogy, they kind of mirror each other in the way they work. I'm looking at a computer now, and where is what I'm looking at? It's inside the computer. What the computer is decoding, it's only showing me an image of it on the screen, but it's all going on inside the computer. It's not here or here or here. It's inside the computer. It's exactly the same principle. And then you start to realize that there are these different levels that we're decoding the simulation on. There's the frequency level, there's the electrical level, there's the digital level, and the holographic level. And then you start to play that out across what scientists have found in the fabric of our reality. So you mentioned the Fibonacci sequence. And if you look at what's called sacred geometry, you have pi and golden mean and golden section and Fibonacci, and you have the fractal patterns, which are basically as above, so below. It's a holographic principle, and they are everywhere in our reality, in the way that things grow, in the way that storms form, in the proportions of the human face. These things are everywhere. So the question is why? Well, because they are computer codes. And what we call the genetic code is a computer code. It's decoding the simulation. And so when we enter this reality, our consciousness enters this reality, what we enter in this vehicle is that which is decoding the reality we're experiencing. Now we don't know that. We think we experience it as if we're in a body in a physical world, but actually what it's doing is decoding that reality, like the computer decodes from Wi-Fi. And so you go through your life, and unless you expand your awareness into more expanded levels of consciousness, then your entire reality is dictated by what the body computer is decoding. So what we do when we look through our eyes and we go about our everyday life is we see and appear to interact with a physical world, which is actually
Okay, David, we're going to take just a real short break, but when we come back, I'd love to talk to you about that. And I just want to say, recently I heard you on another interview, and someone said, how do you escape the matrix? And I loved your answer, because you said you escape the matrix by not identifying with what is finite, with these codes that you're talking about, and escape into infinity, which was the last chapter in your book. So we're just going to take a real short 2-minute break, and maybe someone will want to call in. Okay, I'm ready.
For more empowering words from Elizabeth Monroy and Dr. Peter Monroy, check out their latest book, The Infinite Human. an ascension guide for starseeds, twin souls, and awakening infinite humans. The co-creators of the new Infinite 5D Earth. You'll also find many spiritual books to help both children and adults in their ascension back to home, to infinite God Source. Isn't it time to be part of the new consciousness renaissance? If this resonates with you, please subscribe to our website at infinitehuman.com and become part of our growing Infinite Human family.
Success starts here. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com. It's your world.
Welcome back to the Infinite Human Talk Show with your host, Elizabeth Monroy. Do you have a question or comment for Elizabeth or her guests? Please call us at 888-346-9141. That's 888-346-9141. You can also text or email your questions and comments to infinitehumanproductions@gmail.com. Now, back to the show.
Hello and welcome back to the Infinite Human Talk Show. I'm your host, Elizabeth Monroy, and we're with David Icke. And he just explained brilliantly, which he also explained in his book, The Dream, which is a must read for everyone. And he's also working on a sequel now. But he explained how we are living in a simulation in a limited band of awareness, really disconnected and cut off from all that is, ever has been, and ever shall be, the infinite. And his last chapter in The Dream is Escape to Infinity. So I'd like to pick up there about how do you, I think in the ancient times, many people said, be in it, but not of it, or to start moving more in tune with what you call prime creation, or what's truly real, the true fields, the true energetic encryptions that are connected to the infinite, or the cosmic Wi-Fi outside of this simulation. Could you speak to that?
I was just going to finish off before the break is.
Sorry.
Well, no, it actually goes into to answer your question. What happens at what we call death is the computer, the biological computer, ceases to function. And when it ceases to function, it ceases to decode this reality. And so our consciousness, our attention is released from this reality into another reality, what we call the astral reality, the one closest to this one.
Which is still compromised, right? Still part of the simulation.
Still compromised. Yeah, that's how the reincarnation cycle, the cycle of wheel of samsara, as they call it in the East, is part of this whole simulation trap. It's we experience the physical, and then we go out and experience it in another way, and we think that's heaven or whatever. And then we keep coming back because we're told we have karma and we've got to work through karma and all that stuff. I go into it in the book.
I mean, you talk about what, the tunnel of light and the icons that are set there to talk us in. And I love the brilliant comparison to the Star Trek with Jane, who meets, the figure of, I think it was pretending to be her father, trying to coax her back in, which means there is an escape if there, you have to agree.
There is. And if we come around to why I call it the dream. It is a dream, but it's not just a dream. It's an induced dream. When I was a journalist a long time ago, I went through a period where I would wake up in the morning and I would put the radio on, a news show, see what was going on. And then I might fall asleep again. It happened quite a lot. And, I would have a dream. I would have a very vivid dream over and over, many, 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 many times. And what would happen is when I woke up, I would realize that the dream I've just had related to what was being said on the radio. So it wasn't just a dream. It was an induced dream. And what I'm describing with this this biological computer we call the body, which is decoding the equivalent of the Wi-Fi field, the simulation, into the reality we appear to be experiencing. That's an induced dream. It's inducing a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this great saying, which is based absolutely in truth. Energy flows where attention goes. The whole thing is about attention. What we call death is only a transfer of attention
Mm-hmm.
from this reality, when the body ceases to decode it, to the next reality. It's just all attention. Now, this force and this cult know that. They know that if they can control your attention, which is what? Controlling your perception, but it's also controlling your what you're focused on, then they can control you. So what they're all the time doing is trying to persuade us that this is real, and it seems very real because that's what the computer is decoding. But it's a dream. It's an induced dream, and when we leave the body, what we call death, and we move into this astral dimension where this reincarnation cycle continues. The dream continues. It's just a different type of dream. I've gone into.
So how do you wake up in the dream? Have a lucid dream? What would you say?
Well,
The best way to do it while you're in the body still.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because you must have had dreams. I have them all the time, and I've sort of most people have them, where you're in a dream, but you know it's a dream.
Yes, a lucid dream. Yes.
Yeah. So
then you can take control.
Yes. Now, what happens if you're in a dream that you don't know is a dream? You are pulled into whatever's happening.
You're a victim. Yeah.
It can take you over. You can wake up in fear. I've had a nightmare because you have been literally living the dream. When you have a dream where you know it's a dream, you don't have the same emotional impact. There's not that attachment to the dream. You become an observer of the dream. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying that if you believe in this reality and you think it's real and you don't realize what it is, then it pulls you in. Your attention connects with it, and you are experiencing it as if it's real. It's gotcha. And when you leave the body and you go into this astral realm with the tunnel and the light and all that stuff, which is all part of the whole wheel of samsara I talk about in the book, you believe that's real as well, then that will hold you in another form of the dream, because the astral and the what we call matter, they're together. They are the simulation.
But what you've been saying too in your book and now is that a lot of people think to ascend they have to die or they have to go somewhere if they go through a Stargate or if they have to be beamed up by the Palladians, but it's right here now inside of you. That divine spark, of infinite source is inside of you. So you just have to let go of the barriers that make you believe that you're not powerful, that you're not connected to this cosmic Wi-Fi, that you don't have the power inside of yourself to wake up and do it, co-create your own reality.
Yeah, because we're told, you see, that we're powerless, and when I look at this, the astral level of this after what we call death. And I've read and listened to so many near-death experiences over the years, and you pick up the common themes and what have you. It's one of the things that this reality and that other reality have is subordination to authority. So you're in this world and you're looking to authority to tell you what to think. You're looking at experts and teachers and academics, and scientists and all that stuff. And then you leave the body, and your consciousness moves into this astral dimension. And now you're faced with spirit guides and groups of elders and all these things that are constantly talked about by near-death experiencers, and religious heroes and what have you.
But do you think that this whole simulation is breaking down though? I mean, I really feel like it's starting to glitch, and the simulation is losing its power, because there's so much, there's like the photonic belt and the plasma frequencies from the sun and the earth's energies, and I think it's just dissolving this dome structure. This frequency band is glitching, and the true prime creation is coming through also inside of our bodies. We're reconstructing our divine, I call it the Kathara grid, or divine crystic blueprint, which is 12 strands of DNA. So we're returning to our direct connection to all of creation, and the earth is the ley lines are being purified. And by the way, I loved your documentary on the heart of the world in England, in the tour of Avebury, right? Avebury.
Yeah, that's right. But the thing is that
sorry, not to take you off mine, but
okay,
I'm a woman.
We talk about waking up. Right? It's a big thing. Waking up. We're gonna wake up. So what happens when you're asleep and you wake up? You cease to be in the dream that you were in. You're now in another reality. And if you sit people around a table and you get them all to focus on something, absolutely focus their attention, you can do amazing things, what we call paranormal things. You can move things and what have you. That attention is extremely powerful in holding a reality together. And what we are doing, 8 billion of us now, it seems, is our belief in this dream is holding the dream together.
Holding the morphogenetic field of of that lower frequency consciousness in place.
It's our belief in it that's holding it together.
And feeding it every day by following the rules and going through the rituals.
If people start to reach this level of awareness where they see it's a dream, and they start to live it as if it's a dream. So, one of the great ways that people are pulled into the dream, and their attention is pulled into to hold the dream together, to believe in it, is the drama. The drama of life. Oh my God! Have you heard the latest? Oh my God! The drama that goes on, and the drama, when you get pulled in by it, it makes everything seem real. But I'm telling you, experience that if you just go, hold on, I'm just taking a step back from this. I can see what it is. It's a dream. It's an induced dream. And I don't have to play the game that it wants me to play. And what starts to happen, and it happens more and more as you move into this mode, is things that used to wind you up before and get you pulled in, they don't anymore. And if someone said to me, how do we escape the dream? Stop believing in it. Stop believing in it. So when you're going through life, if you are in a physical body, then it's going to decode the matrix. It's going to decode the simulation. That's its job. But when you leave the body, you don't have to go up the tunnel to the light, and you don't have to believe and kowtow to all.
But I think even now people can actually make that shift and not believe they have to age, their bodies have to decay, they have to live in these toxic environments. I talked to Sasha. I spent last Christmas in Mexico there, and I know he's creating new earth communities, and there's a lot of movement to be more with, I feel like, being with the organic, with nature, that is outside of this simulation. And I even believe that right now what we see with all this technology, they've always had the technology, the archons have always had it, but they're shoving it in our faces right now because they know that they can't hold us anymore in this simulation. But they're trying to, I feel like, get, takeaway food with them to have us inject our consciousness into the web, the net, so that when they are evacuated, they can take, the souls that are continuing to buy into this simulation with them. And I feel like the organic world around us is just, it's alive now. It's spiraling towards life, not the death cult. It's spiraling toward, rejuvenation and regenesis. What say you?
Yeah. The thing is that in the end, it comes down to self-identity. So what the human body decoding system is doing, if we fall for it totally, is telling us we're a human. It's giving us labels. You're a man, you're a woman, you are this race, this income bracket, that income bracket, this religion, that religion. It's all labels. And they're not who we are, they're what we're experiencing. But the thing is, if you can persuade people that what they're experiencing, those labels, is who they actually are, then what you're doing is you're pulling their attention, that you're focusing their consciousness in the myopia of belief that you are a human and that's who you are. And so self-identity, if you say to people, hello, nice to meet you, who are you? They'll give you their name. They'll give you maybe where they come from. They'll give you their job or whatever. They'll give you the labels of a human.
And this goes back to what you said, how you escaped the matrix, stopped identifying with the finite. And I don't like the word ego because I think it's been abused by spiritual teachers, get out of your ego. But I just see the ego as identifying with a label, with a finite aspect of yourself, because you're not.
If you can self-identify, this is another way out of this whole nonsense. If you can self-identify while you're in this reality, and absolutely when you leave it, that you are an expression of infinite awareness. You are an expression of all that is, has been, and ever can be. Mm-hmm. Then if that's your self-identity, that will be your frequency. And your frequency will take you out of here if you have that self-identity. But what you have, again, if you look at these two levels of the simulation, the level of matter we call human, and the astral we call the afterlife, they are both seeking to control your sense of self-identity. When you're in this reality, your self-identity is you're pressured to believe you are a human. When you leave this reality, the pressure is to believe you are a soul on a journey of to enlightenment via reincarnation. In other words, you're in this reality of the simulation, or in the astral level of the simulation, the goal is to control your self-identity.
Now, I love what you said about reincarnation and the dream. But my take on it is, because the truth is there really is no time. There's just like different flash sequences, but it's all here, but just in different layers of dimensional frequency. But I see reincarnation more as MK Ultra trauma-based mind control. And I know you've worked with Kathy O'Brien, and I think we all are, because they're fragmented altars that, and because we've lived in a loose, simulation, and the whole focus is to create pain and misery and anger and sorrow. And that keeps us going back too, because it's like, he killed me, I got to kill him, or you have so many so much pain, of trauma that has happened to you by being raped or burnt or beheaded, or, and it fragments your memories. And part of becoming whole or holy is to remember the trauma, feel it and release it, and then bring all those altars back to yourself. So you don't continue the game, of I'm going to play this last card, it's like you're going to the bitter end, trying to.
Well, you kind of start to grasp why this has been done. Because the question obviously is, okay, this Wi-Fi information construct to which we're attached by the body and the astral as well, it's been created by this non-human force, ultimately a state of very inverted, bewildered consciousness. But why? And then you realize, and I go into this in the trap and the dream, and I'm going into it even more deeply in this book, that these entities, this force, is feeding off low vibrational human energy. Now, because it itself is in a low vibrational state, it's an astral phenomenon, which is why we don't see it unless it enters our reality. It's an astral phenomenon, and it's a very low vibrational state. Now, on basic laws of frequency, if you're going to absorb energy, it's got to be within the frequency band that you're operating on. Otherwise, never the twain shall meet, like the old analog radio stations. So the simulation has been created to so bewilder us. And, one of the things you kind of grasp there are some people who say, and, the ones I've heard, I believe them, I think they're genuine. They say they remember their incarnation. Not many do, but a few do. And they're very common themes in what they describe. And one of the things is how bloody low the frequency of this reality is. It's incredibly low and incredibly dense. And because of that, it's immensely challenging. And what this level of the simulation particularly is about is creating situations that generate low vibrational human, particularly emotion. So fear. If you just look at the currency above all that controls humans, it's fear. And you've got
when it should be creation currency. And outside of this, it's our creativity is the true currency. But it's so distorted here.
So then you've got depression, anxiety, resentment, regret, all these low vibrational emotions, which the nature of human life by design is generating all the time. Now, when 9/11 happened, there were sensors all over the earth picking up changes in the electromagnetic field. And as the world, in a pretty short time period, started to see what had happened on 9/11, and of course the pictures went out all over the world.
David, we're running out of time. We've got 3 minutes, but
there was a massive spike in the electromagnetic field. That was the emotional reaction of billions of people to 9/11.
Loose feast.
That's the energy that these entities are feeding off. And that's why the whole thing's been set up. When Morpheus in the Matrix held up a battery and said the machines, this is a computer-generated dream world built to turn humans into one of these, a battery, that was a profound truth. That's what's happening.
Well, there's just so little time, but I want everyone to know where, because you talk about all this in the dream, which is on iconic.com. Because he was taken off of YouTube, but he took lemons and made lemonade and started this wonderful, iconic, channel with
Yeah, the
beautiful
media
all this
platform, iconic. Yeah, and there's
and
so there's
then
a
and all his books. I mean, over what 30 books. I mean, you have
yeah. The books are at davidicke.com. You can and
okay. And anything else we can get? And please promise me you'll come back. Promise me you'll come
yeah,
back.
the books are at davidicke.com.
Uh,
And the film, The Dream, is on
Okay,
Iconic.
and please, I want to have you back so we can talk more because your energy is just, it's so beautiful. It's just awakening. It really is beautiful. So we're gonna have to. Anything else you want to say in closing? We have like a minute.
Yeah, it's self-identity.
Mm.
If you believe you're powerless, you'll live a powerless life. Not because you're powerless, but because you believe you're powerless. It's all about belief. What you believe, you perceive. What you perceive, you experience.
And you
So
are all that is, ever has been, and ever shall
yeah,
be.
when you start to self-identify with that's what you are, everything changes. First of all, your consciousness expands because as you expand your self-identity, the nature of who you are, your consciousness automatically expands further and further into the
The
field.
frequency.
The more you go into the myopia of I'm just little me, I've got no power, that it goes the other way. And then you do become powerless because you're accessing so little of the field anyway, because your myopia of self-identity, that's all it's accessing. It's all
Okay.
self-identity. And that's why the manipulation is focused on making us feel we are small, powerless, and insignificant. We are not.
Okay. Thank you, David Icke, so much. And stick around just a few minutes. And thank you guys for joining me. And again, thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Infinite Human Talk Show with your host, Elizabeth Monroy. We hope today's episode has inspired you to join the new consciousness renaissance and be the change by reclaiming your true divine infinite nature within and becoming an infinite human and a co-creator of the new infinite earth. Tune in next week for another empowering episode. Until then, have an infinite week.
Just a minute, Kiki. She knows it's over.